We now come to business questions. Shadow Leader of the House, Lucy Powell.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. If the Leader would give us the forthcoming business, please.
The House.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The business for the week commencing the 19th of February will include Monday the 19th of February, second reading of the Investigatory Powers Amendment Bill Lords. Tuesday the 20th of February, remaining stages of the Offshore Petroleum Licensing Bill. Wednesday the 21st of February, Opposition Day, fifth allotted day, debate on a motion in the name of the Scottish National Party, subject to be announced. Thursday the 22nd of February, a debate on the Civil Nuclear Roadmap, followed by a general debate on premature deaths from heart and circulatory diseases. The subjects for these debates were determined by the Backbench Business Committee. Friday the 23rd of February, private members' bills. Provisional business for the week commencing the 26th of February includes, on Monday the 26th of February, general debate, subject to be confirmed. Tuesday the 27th of February, remaining stages of the Leasehold and Reform Bill. Wednesday the 28th of February, second reading of the Pedicabs London Bill Lords. Thursday the 29th of February, a debate on a motion on language in politics on International Women's Day, followed by a general debate on Welsh affairs. The subjects for these debates were determined by the Backbench Business Committee. Friday the 1st of March, private members' bills.
Lucy Powell.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. And I want to start by offering my best wishes to His Majesty the King and all the royal family at this difficult time. I wish him a speedy recovery. I thank the Leader for the business, but yet again there are a few things missing that we have been long promised. I was glad to see the motion on risk-based exclusion of members laid last week, but when will she schedule a debate and a vote on it? Once again, there is no motion on the Procedure Committee's recommendations on holding Secretaries of State in the Lords to account. Report stage of the Renters Reform Bill was promised by early February, but it's nowhere to be seen. And the football regulator, long promised to clubs and their communities, is still not in the upcoming business. She said a few weeks ago the legislation would be brought forward very soon. Can she also confirm that the government will make a statement as soon as we're back on progress in exonerating victims of the Post Office Horizon scandal, and that it is still the intention of the government to bring forward legislation to exonerate victims? And we're getting a written ministerial statement today on infected blood, yet she's promised time and again oral statements to update the House. The business she's just announced isn't exactly going to fill all the days, so surely she can find time for these important matters. Mr Speaker, this week we saw the launch of the popular Conservatives, who apparently haven't heard of irony or oxymorons, headed by the member for South West Norfolk, the least popular Prime Minister in the history of British polling. I know the Leader of the House is a fan of hers, but in the 6 weeks she was in office, she managed to totally crash the economy. So who exactly do they think they're popular with? Mortgage holders coming out of fixed rates and now paying hundreds of pounds a month more? Shoppers seeing price of food and essentials soar? Or renters seeing massive hikes? Let's be honest, poll after poll shows there's absolutely nothing popular about the current Conservative Party. Although I did notice, Mr Speaker, that the Leader herself ranks as the most popular Conservative with voters. So maybe she could offer the popular Conservatives some advice. Show some contrition for the economic mess they've caused and stay off the airwaves. Perhaps more somberly, Mr Speaker, the Prime Minister has this week made some serious misjudgments. On Monday, he shook hands on a bet to deport migrants to Rwanda before the next general election. Betting on people's lives was grim to watch, and the ease with which the Prime Minister agreed to a £1,000 bet when so many are suffering through the Conservative cost of living crisis was a gross spectacle. Does she think betting about the plight of desperate people is a good advert for her government? In that interview, she also inferred the Leader of the Opposition was a terrorist sympathiser. He also inferred that the opposition was a terrorist sympathiser. Actually, when he was the Director of Public Prosecutions, my right honourable friend oversaw the first convictions of senior members of Al-Qaeda, the jailing of the airline liquid bomb plotters, and the deportation of countless terrorists. All the while, the Prime Minister was making money as a hedge funder in the city during the global financial crisis, as ordinary people paid the price. I know who I'd rather have in charge. Only last week, we agreed in here that civility, respect, decency and truth in politics matters. So will she distance herself from such malicious mudslinging? And this week, in Prime Minister's Question Time, we hit a new low. In the week of the first anniversary of the murder of Brianna Guy, whilst her mother was in the public gallery, the Prime Minister tried to score cheap political points at the expense of trans people, which Brianna's father condemned as absolutely dehumanising. Many of us found it deeply offensive and distasteful, including many honourable members opposite. The Prime Minister's been given plenty of opportunity to apologise to Esther Guy and her family, and has refused. And the Equality Secretary, whose job it is to stand up for the marginalised, doubled down and dismissed the cries of the family. The leader has a better record than many in her party on this issue, and I know she will be appalled too. So will she take this opportunity to apologise on the Prime Minister's behalf and call out using minorities as a political punchbag?
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we are about to go into recess, and I think it is a restorative thing to spend time with our constituents, to escape the Westminster and social media bubble. Since Parliament returned this year, we have witnessed the nation rally behind a group of people mightily wronged, who took on those in powerful positions to fight to get justice for themselves and others. The Honourable Lady mentions the Post Office Horizon scandal. She will know that there is a debate this afternoon, and I'm sure that the Minister will take the opportunity to update the House on progress made towards that legislation. I confirm that is still our intent. And I know also that the Paymaster General, my right honourable friend, is working at pace with regard to infected blood, and I understand he had a meeting with the Honourable Lady from Hull with regard to that earlier this week. We have also seen, Mr. Speaker, the crew of the Prince of Wales aircraft carrier cancel plans, leave time with their loved ones to do their duty. We have learnt that thanks to the graft and grit of the British people and businesses, our economy has turned a corner. We have seen our monarch responding to his cancer diagnosis, as many other Brits have, with courage, duty and cheerfulness, and with family rallying around. And I thank the Honourable Lady for her remarks and good wishes for him, all members and the British public who have sent their best wishes to His Majesty. We have also seen a mother meeting the brutal murder of her child with the most profound grace and compassion, turning her anguish into positive action to protect other children. And we have seen a father speak about how the love for his child enabled him to overcome his worries about them being trans. These are the things, Mr. Speaker, that our nation is made of: compassion, fairness, tolerance, responsibility, service and love. We see these things every day in the people that sent us here, and we look on them with pride. Sometimes that pride is reciprocated. I'm sure it was for the Honourable Member for Culsholton and Wallington in what he said yesterday. And sometimes that pride is not reciprocated. Whatever the rough and tumble of this place, whatever the pressures and mistakes that are made in the heat of political combat, we owe it to the people who sent us here to strive every day to make them proud of us and this place. The Prime Minister is a good and caring man. I'm sure that he has reflected on things, and I understand he will say something later today, or perhaps even during this session. And that is not just about Mr. and Mrs. Guy that he should reflect on, But I'm sure he is also reflecting about people who are trans or who have trans loved ones and family, some of whom sit on these green benches. I hope the Leader of the Opposition will also reflect on his actions too. This government has been right to protect the safety and dignity of women. At each stage of doing so, has sought to bring certainty and assurance to trans people. This government is also right to hold the opposition to account for its multiple inconsistencies and U-turns on its policy platform. And today, Mr. Speaker, we have supposition ended and the reality has landed about the Schrödinger £28 billion, a policy that for months and months has been both alive and dead, and is now confirmed as dead, well, at least for now. There will be questions over whether the Shadow Energy Secretary's tenure in this role is also alive or dead. Politically, strategically incompetent, as the Labour member for Brent has called this sorry saga. And that description could also apply to Labour's costings on their insulation programme and their council tax policy and modelling. More confirmation that not only do Labour not have a plan, they have no hope of arriving at one either. The Honourable Lady asks me about risk-based exclusion. We have put that amendment, the motion on future business, and she knows that we will bring forward a debate and a vote on that after recess. But I do want members of this House to have time to make themselves aware of that and to also ask myself and other commission members questions about it. And with regard to scrutiny of the Foreign Secretary, I am in touch with the Lord's Leader on this matter, and I hope to update the House soon. Mr. Speaker, finally, today marks the start of Marriage and Family Week, and I think it's appropriate that we send a big thank you to all of us, all of those that support us in this place and who quite often put up with a great deal. Further business will be announced in the usual way.
Sir Edward Leigh.
The Leader of the House knows that I'm a member of the Programme Board on Restoration and Renewal, and she is the responsible minister. There's a debate due on the business case, and she might now tell the House when that is going to happen. It's quite imminent. But also we're going to have a debate on whether we decant, but not till 2025. And even if we do decant, that won't be till 2031. And I doubt I shall personally live to see it, although I wish honourable members well with that project. I don't want to get involved in the issue with whether decant or not, but I want to ask a specific question. This has now dragged on since 2015 and could drag on till 2031. Meanwhile, the building is decaying around us. There are three options delivered to the Speaker's Commission on this matter, and one is planned maintenance around us. We have successfully done good work on parts of the building, and I urge her now, and she might make an announcement on this, that we will press ahead with planned maintenance, proper planned maintenance, so we can repair the building and make it good for future generations.
Leader of the House.
Can I start by thanking my honourable friend for all the work that he and other colleagues have done on the programme board. The new governance structure, I hope Mr. Speaker will concur, has enabled us to make good progress on actually getting a proper grip on what needs to happen to this building and the activity and costs associated with it. We will bring forward further news on where we are with the plans and programme to the House shortly. But what I would say to the honourable gentleman is that that shouldn't get in the way of concurrent activity, and he will know that there are some early projects which we think we can get on with, which are perfectly within the boundaries of the current R&R Act, and we should get on and do them. And I hope that the House will welcome a more pragmatic approach to taking care of this important UNESCO heritage site.
SNP spokesperson Deidre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I associate myself with the Shadow Leader's comments about Brianna Guy and her remarkable parents? Mr. Speaker, last week I asked the Leader about the cost of the Tories' secret and highly sensitive State of the Union report to Cabinet. Hansard records that not one word of her answer reflected my question. Not one syllable. Instead, she read out to the chamber a video script, in fact, about bingo and a joke about monkeys. The week before, I asked the leader about the Electoral Commission's concerns over Tory voter ID plans. Again, not one word in Hansard about Tory voter ID, not a peep. Instead, she read her prepared script attacking the SNP. In fact, Hansard reveals that week after week, not only do my questions go unanswered, they're completely ignored. And week after week, we get a clickbait video for her personal YouTube channel. Surely, behaviour that demeans her office and disrespects this House. She's here to answer questions from members. So I returned to that State of the Union report in July 2020 to Cabinet with its aim of undermining the Scottish Government and the Scottish independence cause, a Tory top priority at the height of the pandemic, apparently. It came to light last week, and no wonder her government wanted to keep it under wraps. It contains more grim news for any remaining supporters of the Union. So my questions again, how much did it cost taxpayers and what was its purpose? What strategy was it asking the Cabinet to endorse? Do the Union Strategy and Operations Committees still exist? And while she's at it, I'd be really pleased to know the details of the team of highly professional attack dogs, as described by one journalist, who were employed at around that time in an attempt to counter independent support. Now, unlike the Prime Minister, I'm not a betting woman, Mr. Speaker, but I would wager £1,000 bet I wouldn't get answers to those today either. So I will be writing to the leader with all the questions she's ignored, just this year for starters. My question today, though, really just needs a simple yes or no. And then I challenge her to sit back down and resist the video script, and it is this. Will she, at the very least, attempt to find answers to my questions when she receives them in writing, as she refuses to here? And can we have a debate on the role and function of the Leader of the House?
Leader.
Well, you can have a debate on the role and function of the Leader of the House every Thursday at approximately 10:30. And I hope that it is colleagues' experience that when they ask me questions, I either furnish them with answers if it is about the business of the House, or I follow up with departments and write to them. I'm afraid that, as Hansard will show, the Honourable Lady's questions to me and to various departments are sometimes hard to fathom. She asks me about a particular piece of polling, and I can certainly write to the Cabinet Office. She may, as she indicates, kindly save me the trouble, and I will just send her letter to the Cabinet Office for them to respond to the Honourable Lady. But it does come in a week when the Scottish Government's own costs on polling have been exposed. I hope that honourable members would disagree with the Honourable Lady's assessment that I demean my office, although it is high praise indeed from the Scottish National Party. I think my party has some way to go before we reach 22 live police investigations. Whilst it may be true that if you live in a Labour area, you are 40% more likely to be a victim of crime, I think if you're an SNP politician, you're probably 40% more likely to be investigated for one.
Sir John Hayes.
Mr. Speaker, I don't need to join this new organisation that the Shadow Leader pointed out, because as my friends from Wansbeck and Caithness and Huddersfield know, I'm already popular and Conservative. But as far as the Leader of the House is concerned, will she organise a statement on pernicious political correctness? You will be surprised, as I was, Mr. Speaker, to know the Environment Agency has now removed the words mother and father from all of its documents because it believes that they should be non-gendered. Well, my dear mother, from a greater place we're looking down, spinning her grave that she's now been designated non-gender. Can we have a debate on this? It sounds like nonsense, but actually it's much more sinister than that. Free speech is at stake.
Leader.
Well, can I thank my right honourable friend for raising this very important question. It is very important that whilst our legislation and the things that arms-length bodies have need to be legally accurate, it is the case that people can use language, words like mother and father, and that is incredibly important. And actually, not only is the right thing to do, but it is also what the guidance that they should be operating under says they should do. Can I ask the right honourable gentleman to let my office have the details of the particular case that he raises, and in addition to perhaps having a debate, and he will know how to apply for one in the usual way, I could follow that up for him with the relevant arm's length body.
Chair of the Backbench Committee in Burns.
Very grateful, Mr Speaker. And can I thank the Leader of the House for the business statement and for announcing 2 weeks full business. I think that's a welcome departure from that perspective. Mr Speaker, last week we had to pull a debate due to shortage of time, and that was understandable given the importance of the government business that was tabled on the day. But the sad point from our perspective is, unless we are allocated some time other than Thursdays for backbench debates, it now seems that we have no further time to allocate here in the Chamber, probably before the Easter recess. Possibly Monday the 26th of February might fit the bill, since it's been announced as a general debate for such a day. So we are of course open for applications, but we are particularly open for applications for business to accept applications for business in Westminster Hall. And I know this was earlier mentioned, Mr Speaker. Could the Leader of the House give us an indication of the progress to bring forward legislation for the appointment of the football regulator? I've got a particular interest in this. Television's impact on travelling football fans is worsening, with Newcastle United fans, of which I'm one, alone having been imposed on them inconvenient and almost unworkable away game fixtures on no fewer than 8 times this season, with away kick-off times as 8 p.m. on New Year's Day, 5:30 in Brighton and Bournemouth. This is when travelling from the northeast of England. London kick-offs of 8 p.m. on a Saturday night on 2 occasions and 7 p.m. on a Saturday night on 1 occasion. These now make it unworkable for people to get back from these fixtures on public transport, and it's happening on a much more regular basis. The football regulator is much needed. I'm sure that this is something that a football regulator would like to focus upon.
Well, can I thank the honourable gentleman for all the work that he does on the Backbench Business Committee, and his welcome of 2 weeks of business. Nothing makes me happier than to come to the House and announce 2 weeks of business. He knows that I take very seriously our obligations to providing the Backbench Business Committee time to have their debates on the floor of the House, and I will hopefully update him shortly as to when we can give him some additional time. He raises an incredibly important point, and I have to say I find it amazing that this has been allowed to endure for some time. I think it's probably very unfair on not just those players, but clearly the travelling public too. I will make sure that the Secretary of State has heard his concerns, and he will know that the next questions to her are on the 22nd of February.
Bob Blackman.
Collecting food waste from domestic properties is an expensive service, both in setting up and indeed carrying out the service. Every local authority in West London has had this service for a long time, and certainly all before March 2023. Now, in West London, DEFRA is providing funding for Hounslow at £230,000, Brent £201,000, Ealing £406,000, and Hillingdon a massive £606,000. In my borough of Harrow, 0. Yet we have a position where we are only collecting food waste from 4,136 flats, and the borough wants to roll the service out to over 18,000 more flats. It's clearly unfair that Harrow is being singled out and not getting the funding it deserves, and in fact for many years previous as well. So could my right honourable friend arrange for the Secretary of State for DEFRA or a DEFRA Minister to make a statement on the floor of the House on how this funding is allocated and why Harrow doesn't receive its fair share?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his question and for giving me advance notice of it. That is very helpful and diligent of members who do that. What it has uncovered is an administrative saga that I will not bore the House with, but I will update the honourable gentleman. But the fact that he has got this situation on record, I think, will help contribute to it being resolved, and I've received some reassuring news from the relevant department.
Holly Lynch.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Further to a question at last week's business questions from the Conservative benches about SSB law, I've also had at least 10 constituents affected by this issue. What can only be described as cowboy outfits offering constituents cavity wall insulation have pumped cavity wall insulation into homes that it shouldn't have been, resulting in mould, damp and damage to properties. They were then approached by SSB Law, who took on those claims on a no-win, no-fee basis. When that went under, my constituents have had enforcement notices telling them they owe up to £19,000. It's a scandal on top of a scandal. I've written to the Justice Secretary as a matter of urgency back in December, but I haven't had a response. Can she help me find ways in Parliament to coordinate just how many people right across the north, we expect this could be hundreds if not thousands of people have been affected, so that we can respond and look after these people who are some of the most vulnerable, getting these extortionate bills now, telling them they owe thousands of pounds.
Well, I thank the Honourable Lady for her question. I'm very sorry to hear about this ongoing situation. I think from memory, I wrote to the department last week about this particular issue, and I will make sure that that the reply that comes back, that she is cited on that. But I will also raise this again with the Justice Secretary and chase up her correspondence. My office stands ready to assist her in getting this resolved for her constituents.
Teresa Millett.
It is both intolerable and heartbreaking that hostages remain in captivity in Gaza after more than 100 days. Who knows what horrors are being inflicted on them as we sit here today. So can we have the Minister come to the House to make an urgent statement on what the government is doing to get the hostages home?
Well, can I thank my right honourable friend for what she has just said and the ongoing work she is doing to keep our eyes focused on these individuals. Yesterday marked the fourth month that they've been in captivity for 4 months. I met this week with Annabelle, who is helping the Sharabi family. They have lost multiple members of their family in the attack on the 7th of October, and they had very sadly recently confirmed that another, Yossi, who was taken hostage, has been murdered. He was described as a pillar of their family. He was a football fan and a supporter of Manchester United. The family are hoping that Leigh Sharabi, who was also taken hostage, will be returned to them, and eventually that Yossi's body would be returned to them so they can bury him too. Sadly, Ellie's ordeal will not end there, because his wife and 2 daughters are amongst those murdered in the attack, and I do not think he will know that yet. Can I thank all those who are working to bring these hostages home, and all members who are working to keep the spotlight on these individuals, and also resolve the tragedy that is continuing to unfold in Gaza. I will make sure that the Foreign Office have heard what the Right Honourable Lady has said today, and this House is kept informed.
We're a House.
Mr. Speaker, may I also wish His Majesty the King a speedy recovery. He was brave to share his health news. He has shown his own vulnerability and shown his humanity, and I'm sure people across the nation will thank him for that. Mr. Speaker, the Household Support Fund provides grants to households struggling to make ends meet. However, local authorities still do not know if funding for it will continue past the end of March. Over 100 organisations warn there will be devastating consequences if the fund is not extended. Can we have a statement to clarify the future of the Household Support Fund?
Well, can I first thank the Honourable Lady for her words about His Majesty the King. Many members will know the merits of the Household Support Fund, and we gave this funding to local authorities to enable them to have the flexibility to respond to particular situations where people fall through the cracks for other types of support. That's why we have done it. It is still in operation, and I know that the Department for Levelling Up and the Treasury will want to ensure members are given good notice about what will follow. I shall make sure that both those departments have heard what she has said today.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Local plans are the foundation on which planning authorities make their decisions, and yet so few people take part in the consultations that take place ahead of the production of these plans, and yet they shape our villages and towns across the country. Could we have a debate in which we can exchange ideas about how we might involve more people in the formation of these plans?
Yeah.
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for raising this matter and all the work he does to empower his community to get more involved with shaping their local plans. He will know that our revised national planning policy framework addresses some of those concerns and the weaknesses in the planning system, and that the next questions to the Secretary of State will be on the 4th of March, where he can raise this directly with the Minister himself.
In Leith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The life expectancy for the less well off in South East Northumberland barely scrapes 70 years of age. This is due to the industrial heritage and legacy in my region, like many others. The right-wing think tanks are mooting the idea of increasing the pension age to 71, which basically means people in my constituency and other constituencies will pay in all their life and get absolutely nothing from the pot. Can we have a debate in government time to discuss these huge discrepancies in life expectancy and the potential of receiving no pension for a lifetime of contributions?
Well, the honourable gentleman raises a very good point, and clearly there are legacy issues in certain parts of the country because of the type of industries that were there. We know also that in the modern workplace there are certain professions, shift workers, for example, which are at a disadvantage in terms of their own health. All of these things need to be fed in when policy is made, which is why it is very important that we have evidence-based policy, and we have the system across government that we do, that every government department is involved in the formulation of policy. Given that the question session to the relevant department is not for some time, I will make sure that the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions has heard the honourable gentleman's point today.
Nick Fletcher.
Mr. Speaker, since being elected, I and many colleagues have spent much time trying to raise the issues that affect men and boys. However, this House has barely raised the importance of dads and the challenges that they face, from the vital role they play in bringing up their children, supporting their family and supporting our country. Yet too many are blocked unfairly from seeing their children after a divorce, or their role in bringing up children is not seen as important. Yet we all know families need their fathers, daughters need their dads, and lads need their dads. Will the Leader of the House agree with me that we should have a debate on the important and vital role that dads play and the challenges that they face?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for the campaign that he has been running on this issue and his diligence in holding all government departments to account for what they are doing to recognise the vital contribution that fathers make, not just in terms of their families, but also to wider society as well. I think this would be an excellent topic for a debate, and he will know how to apply for one, and he will also know that he can continue to raise this directly with ministers at question time. I think it is highly appropriate he has spoken about this. As I said in my opening, we are starting a celebration week of the family, and we know that when families have strong father figures and role models, they're strengthened.
Charlotte Little.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Leader of the House promised that she would table a motion on risk-based exclusions for members. It was published last week. The future business is light and there is plenty of parliamentary time available. So will the Leader of the House tell us why she hasn't scheduled the debate yet and why there is no sense of urgency in ensuring Parliament is a safe workplace and its reputation restored?
Well, I will refer the Honourable Lady to the answer I gave to the Shadow Leader. I think if she were to ask colleagues about their awareness and the detail of what is in that motion, many members would not have registered it. And so what I am doing, and I know that other members of the Commission are doing, are talking to colleagues about that. I have had meetings with colleagues who still have some concerns about aspects of it, because I want to bring it to the House and for it to be understood when this House makes its decision on it. I will do that very shortly after recess, but I do want to allow honourable members and right honourable members the time to study the motion, understand what the scheme is, and I think it stands a better chance of gaining maximum support in this House if it is the case. I will keep the Honourable Lady updated.
Muller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Farmers in my constituency of Aberconwy are in uproar, and my Welsh Conservative colleagues across Wales tell me that they are hearing the same thing. Now, the source of farmers' distress is new proposals from the Welsh Government for a new farming subsidy scheme to be introduced in 2025. An independent economic assessment published with those proposals says that it will result in a 10.8% reduction in livestock and 11% reduction in labour, a number that the NFU in Wales say is equivalent to about 5,500 jobs. Now, I know how important farming is where I am, even if the Welsh Government doesn't seem to appreciate how important it is in Wales. But given those close ties within the farming community across the UK, and given the fact that we enjoy a single UK labour market, will my right honourable friend consider giving time to a debate on the vital contribution of farming to the UK economy when this House returns?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for all the work that he continues to do to champion not just the interests of farming communities in Wales, but also highlighting their critical importance to our resilience as a nation. When you study those potential job losses and also the potential reduction in livestock numbers, I think that the NFU in Wales assessment that these plans are catastrophic is right on the money. I will certainly make sure that the Secretary of State has heard the honourable gentleman's concerns. I would encourage him to keep campaigning against these plans, and he will know that the next DEFRA questions are on the 14th of March.
Dave Downer-Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I respect the Leader of the House, and I note there is a written ministerial statement today, but what this House actually needs is an oral statement from the Cabinet Office Minister so we can ask questions about what the government is doing. On a separate issue, though, I do want to ask about the devolution deal, which is currently being consulted on in my area in East Yorkshire and Hull. We're going to get, apparently, an extra £13.3 million a year over 30 years, shared between the two councils in the area. And constituents have been raising with me that the economic development deal that the government have with Rwanda averages about £54 million a year over 5 years. So my constituents are wondering why it is the government are putting that amount of money into Rwanda when they got elected in 2019 on a policy of levelling up, and why my area is getting so much less.
Well, firstly, can I thank the Honourable Lady for her kind remarks about me and say to her that the feeling is entirely mutual. She will know that I keep in close contact with the Paymaster General regarding infected blood. I'll make sure that he has heard what she has said today, and I understand that he met with her this week. And I know that the whole House will want to be kept informed and updated about the progress that he is making. I will certainly make sure that the Department for Levelling Up have heard what the Honourable Lady has said today. These devolution deals are important and they're a vital tool, along with many other sources of funding that we are putting into communities that need it and that will do something well with it. She will know this is not the only source of funding that her constituency will be receiving. They'll be getting many more streams of funding on many other areas and from many other departments. But I would also say to her that with the finite money that government has, it is important that we are directing that to where we want to spend it. And it is also important that we are alleviating pressures on public services that we do not want to see. And where we have porous borders and where we have people who are, for very understandable reasons, abusing our asylum system, who are economic migrants, for example, and not fleeing persecution, we need to close off those loopholes. The Rwanda scheme is designed to be a deterrent to that, and if it is stood up and successful, it will benefit her constituents.
Owen Thompson.
Mr. Speaker, for some time now I've noticed a growing sense of frustration amongst members where, when asking a question, the answer that comes back to us bears no relation to it. It's like the government ministers are applying some sort of Jedi mind trick to suggest this isn't the question we were looking for. So could I ask the Leader of the House if she would arrange for a statement to be made on what steps the government will take to make sure that ministers are actually answering the questions that they are asked?
Well, I think when presented with a question like that, it's quite hard to answer it. If the Honourable Gentleman would like to furnish me with some examples, any examples where that is happening, I will of course respond to them. This session is business questions, and so his question is in order. But I would just point out to him his question is actually quite difficult to answer.
Justin Mambers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to pay tribute to my constituent Lloyd, who is in the gallery this morning. He's a remarkable young man. Every time the Ellesmere Port Wombles have a litter pick, he is there, come rain or shine. I'd also like to put on record my appreciation of another young constituent, Heidi, 9 years old, who is on Sunday completing her cycle for the equivalent of London to Paris to raise funds for Alzheimer's Research UK and Macmillan Cancer. She's raised nearly now £6,000. It's absolutely fantastic achievement, and there are so many other young people in my constituency, and I'm sure every other honourable member's constituency, who do fantastic things for their communities and for good causes. So can we have a debate, please, about celebrating some of the great work our young people do?
Yeah. Well, can I thank the Honourable Gentleman for affording me and the whole House the opportunity to join in with him in his praise of both Lloyd and Heidi, and congratulate them on all they are doing. I think young people in this country sometimes get a really bad press, and I think that a debate and time on the floor of the House or in Westminster Hall to celebrate all they are doing would be a very good thing.
Marcia de Cordova.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A recent report by London councils has found that Wandsworth is one of the worst affected boroughs by falling pupil roll numbers, with a 12% drop in demand for reception places. Now, many parents in Battersea have shared with me their concerns about the future of their children's education, and so it is vital that the government ensures that every local area has excellent, financially viable schools. So can we have a statement on how the government will be addressing the fall in pupil roll numbers? Good question.
The Honourable Lady, I will certainly make sure that the Secretary of State for Education has heard what the Honourable Lady has said today, and I will draw her attention to the report that is being produced. I think that is how I can best serve the Honourable Lady today.
Rachel Hopkins.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to flag up with the Leader of the House. In the midst of a cost of living crisis of his own making, the Prime Minister this week placed a £1,000 bet with a TV presenter.
Disgraceful.
I was just wondering what the Leader thought, what message that sent to our constituents, many of whom are struggling to pay their bills.
Yeah. Well, the Honourable Lady accuses the Prime Minister of causing a cost of living crisis. I think the Prime Minister, during the pandemic, which he knows will have had knock-on effects because of the spending that we had to do during the pandemic, in part to put in place the furlough scheme, which the now Prime Minister, when he was Chancellor, designed, which kept people and families going, and it also kept businesses going throughout that whole period and enabled us to economically recover from the pandemic swifter than many other comparable nations. He is not also responsible for the war in Ukraine or any of the other geopolitical and global shocks that we are all having to endure, and that has caused financial pressures on the nation and also on households. We have felt it right during this time to stand up an enormous package of support for households to alleviate cost of living, over 100 billion and growing to support those people. And what that shows is this government does understand what people are going through and will do everything it can to support them.
Mr.
Speaker, the Leader of the House may not know this, but when I first received my diagnosis of cancer, just after the last election, I thought it was the end of the world and I would not be able to carry on with my job at representing the people of Huddersfield and doing all the stuff that I love about being an active parliamentarian. And I hope we could have a discussion and debate in the House about the fact that cancer treatment now has changed dramatically. And the science, the technology, and because of that wonderful care in the NHS, and particularly the wonderful team at Guy's and St Thomas's, whether it's immunotherapy, whether it's robotic surgery, which I have had, where the whole world for someone who's diagnosed with cancer is much brighter than it was. And I suppose in a way I want to send a message to His Majesty that it isn't the end of the world. I've had a very active life since that diagnosis. I can still make myself a real pain to the Speaker and my colleagues in the House of Commons. But could we have a debate on this? Things have changed. Let's take a little bit of good news to His Majesty.
Yay. Well, can I thank the honourable gentleman for such a positive and thoughtful message to send not only to His Majesty the King, which I'm sure is very welcome, but also to all Brits who may be having this diagnosis and living with cancer. There is a huge amount to celebrate through treatment, through the amazing research base that we have here, and also our fantastic third sector organisations. It's not just about the treatment and the drugs and the healthcare professionals, it's also about the financial advice, the moral support that is there and often provided by our fantastic cancer charities too. And of course, the people who work in the NHS and those agencies that support them. I think that would be a wonderful topic for a debate, and the honourable gentleman will know how to apply for one.
Andrew Bridgen.
Mr. Speaker, can we have a debate on the death of opposition politics and the rise of the Uniparty? The tired pantomime of this House is played out in this chamber by second-rate actors, but behind the scenes there are elite directors and scriptwriters. And we know the script, Mr. Speaker, we know the script. Uncontrolled immigration will be seen as inevitable. Eye-watering taxes for the many, but tax evasion for the few is just a fact of life. The religion of net zero is to be indulged, whatever the cost. And the forever wars will be supported, even if we have to hand over our children and our treasure. And there's no appetite for an investigation into the excess deaths around the world, and woe betide anyone who points out the inconvenient truth that the excess deaths are only being suffered by nations who succumbed to the magic juice.
I'm tempted to say, Mr. Speaker, it takes one to know one. In response to that, what I would say to the honourable gentleman is that our democracy is strong. Whether you agree or disagree with people who sit on these benches and the views that they have, or the political party that they represent, they are here because their constituents have sent them here. And I think in the vast majority of cases, Mr. Speaker, they are good people serving their constituents to the best of their ability, and shouldn't be tarnished with slurs against their character that they're working for some international Illuminati or don't care about people in their constituencies. Our democracy is the best in the world, Mr. Speaker, and it will remain so, not just because of the people on these benches, but because of the people who sent them here.
Stephanie People.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to send my very best wishes to His Majesty the King. This week, the Secretary of State for Education said she was confident that 15 hours of free childcare would be delivered by April, but then refused to guarantee it would be in place on time. I've had nurseries in Barnsley raise with me concerns about how they will deliver the policy, and this is yet more uncertainty. So can we have a statement about the delivery of the government's childcare policy?
Can I thank the Honourable Lady for her question on a very important matter. This government is undertaking the largest expansion of childcare entitlements and support to the people of this country. It's a matter of great interest to all sides of the House. I will make sure that the Secretary of State has heard what she has said today, and she will know that the next questions to her are on the 11th of March.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I add my call for a statement from the Paymaster General about the contaminated blood scandal on the day that we get back? I'm delighted that she's announced 2 weeks of business for when we return after the recess. But we've been promised that the football bill is imminent, but it doesn't appear for 2 weeks after we get back the week after next. And there's no sign of the third reading of the Renters Reform Bill. Can she explain what's going on with those two bills, please?
Well, those bills are being worked on and are making progress. I fully appreciate that both are eagerly anticipated, and I hope will get support from all sides of this House. I will just refer to the fact that he will know my particular interest in the Football Governance Bill, and I know that many members met with stakeholders in the last couple of weeks regarding that bill, and I hope to update the House very shortly, and that we'll bring that legislation forth very shortly, and I will announce future business in the usual way.
Andrew Weston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In an increasingly cashless society, access to cash from free-to-use ATM machines is increasingly scarce, and this is a particular issue in Old Trafford in my constituency, where the main shopping parade on Ayres Road has no cash machine at all. So could we have a statement from the relevant minister on how the government will ensure that moving forward, as technology means that we are increasingly cashless, people will continue to have access to their hard-earned money for free in their local communities?
Well, the Honourable Gentleman makes a very important point. This is an absolute lifeline for particular people, especially in our communities. He will know that the government had issued guidance and expectations on the sector as to what it needs to take into account when making such cash machines and cash free access to cash available. That is monitored and mapped, and I shall make sure that the relevant Secretaries of State in both the relevant departments have heard what he said today.
Jamie Stone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Last week we heard from all around the Chamber unanimous expressions of very deep disquiet at the prospect of a foreign state, and not a particularly friendly one, gaining control of the Spectator and the Telegraph. Now, as I stand here, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm not very likely to be the recipient of favourable coverage in either publication. However, the Leader of the House has referred to us as being the best democracy in the world. It strikes me that freedom of speech and proper debate and a free press not controlled by a foreign state is very much part and parcel of that. Could I respectfully request that we have a debate on this matter?
Well, can I thank the honourable gentleman for raising this very important point and raising awareness of it. I know that many members of this House have grave concerns about this particular situation. He is absolutely right that having a free press and a competitive media sector are absolutely vital to our democracy, and it should be a concern not just to everyone in this House but to all of our citizens too. The Secretary of State has an obligation to intervene in media transactions where there is a public interest to do so, and clearly the honourable member has got his views on that matter on the record today, and I thank him for it. There is a statutory judicial process in order to do that, so it would not be right for me to comment further on that matter, but I will make sure that the Secretary of State has heard what he, and I know many other honourable members, have said as well.
Tricia Gibson.
Mr Deputy Speaker, I'm sure the Leader of the House is comforted and heartened that where her party leads, the Labour Party is sure to follow in major policy areas, such as the retention of tuition fees, Brexit, retaining the House of Lords and, of course, protecting bankers' bonuses whilst maintaining the two-child cap and rejecting universal free school meals for children. Now, I appreciate that the Leader of the House does not speak for the Labour Party, although, in truth, in important policy areas she may as well. But will she make a statement setting out why she believes it's okay to cap support for the poorest, most vulnerable children in our society, but not for bankers?
Well, first I would say to the Honourable Lady that she doesn't appear to have got the memo from her party's, the Scottish Government's First Minister, because I think that her party and the Labour Party are planning on working together, perhaps to try and form a coalition in the not-too-distant future. I would also just point out to her that an organisation which has conducted some research into Scottish households that are paid less than £20,000 in terms of their income have said that, well, 53% of them feel that they are not getting value for money from the Scottish Government. And I would ask the Honourable Lady to perhaps reflect on what the Auditor General has said this week about the Scottish Government's performance, what they are doing with regard to their budget, and the value for money that the poorest in Scotland are getting for it.
Jim Shannon.
Mr Deputy Speaker, it's always a privilege, Mr Deputy Speaker, to come to this House and ask the question of the Leader of the House. As the Honourable Lady refers to, this is the Mother of Parliaments, and what better place for a privilege to come and ask the question. I, as everyone knows, chair the APPG for Freedom of Religious Belief, and just this week we were highlighting the rising persecution of religion in Nicaragua. The Honourable Lord Alton from the other place is admirably chairing that inquiry on behalf of the APPG for Freedom of Religious Belief, and is highlighting the efforts to develop a report on the conditions as religious leaders face arrest and religious groups face increased persecution from the government. So will the Leader of the House join me in condemning Nicaragua's actions against Ford and ask the Foreign and Commonwealth Office to support Lord Alton's inquiry into such persecution and to ensure that there is a government response? Thank you.
Well, can I thank the Honourable Gentleman for again raising these incredibly important matters, as he does diligently every single week. He will know that my honourable friend, the member for Congleton, does great work in this very important area as the Prime Minister's Special Envoy for Freedom of Religion or Belief. So I will not only make sure that the Foreign Office have heard what he has said today, but also that the member for Congleton has as well in that particular role. No one should experience discrimination for exercising their right to freedom or belief. He will know we take this matter very seriously, and we will work through the UN to promote these rights and raise the particular issues that he has concerns about on every occasion.
Order. May I thank the Leader of the House and the Opposition front bench for their participation this morning. Would members leaving please do so quickly and quietly. Statement